You made it. Welcome to the table. You're just in time to make a dice roll.
Wait, for what? What kind of roll are we making?
We're trying to figure out how this system works, so we'll be making an investigation check. Want to do the honors?
Oh, sounds good. I have proficiency in that one. Oh, that's a nat one.
Well, this should prove interesting, if not at least entertaining. Welcome to the Nat One Nerds podcast.
What does Avatar The Last Airbender, Dungeons and Dragons, horrifying monsters, and a group of weirdos all have in common? They're all featured in the Session Zero Heroes podcast. That's what! At SCH, we collaboratively create stories from a variety of tabletop role-playing games, such as Avatar Legends, which is set in the world of Avatar The Last Airbender and Legend of Korra, or the most well-known TTRPG, Dungeons & Dragons, the spooky Monster of the Week, and so many more. If you're a fan of unexpected twists and turns as a team of players creates characters thrown into insane worlds of the Dungeon Master's creation, then this is the show for you. Come join us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else podcasts can be streamed, including our website at sessionzeroheroes.com. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Discord for all our news and announcements, and to become part of our amazing TTRPG community that we're building. You won't want to miss out on Session Zero Heroes podcast, so check it out today.
Welcome to the table, everyone.
Hey guys, this is Nat One Nerds podcast, back for another episode and another system to explore.
Absolutely. And it's been a minute, man, since me and you have done a one-on-one discussion of a TTRPG, I feel like.
Dude, between everything with Masters for me, your new kids, our kids, work, oh my gosh.
Yeah, adulting be doing that.
So, what are we here for today?
If you guys haven't already, we just did an actual play where we attempted to incorporate the new D&D 2024, or as most people call it, and I think even Wizards are starting to admit it, it's 5.5 edition of D&D.
Oh, they've just straight up said, all right, it's 5.5e, you guys win. Because let's be real, that's what it's been this whole time.
Yeah, that's what the 0.5 is. Like, it's still mostly 5th edition, but there's been a number of notable changes to it. So, but it's not a whole new thing.
You know, I don't know why they tried with the whole 2024 D&D or like 1 D&D and stuff like that. Like, that's not how it works. D&D has editions. Just call it what it is. You're gonna make another major changes in another couple years, and it'll be 6e or whatever.
I have a feeling they were really trying, because of how, like, because 5th edition is the most popular edition of Dungeons and Dragons. I feel like they wanted to stick with it because, you know, capitalism and marketing and all that stuff. So they were really trying to write out the proper 5th edition term, but obviously they got to keep making money. So 2024 rule set came out. So, but I'm glad they finally admitted that it's 5.5. I mean, I don't think it would have hurt as much as them trying to revoke the general use license. So.
Oh my gosh, the OGL debacle. That's a whole nother episode in itself if we want to do that one. But dang.
Oh yeah, I don't want to. Everybody has strong feelings on that one. I'm like, I don't think we're quite that kind of TTRPG podcast. But
nah, we just have fun and goof off with them.
Oh yeah, I feel like after that, it would have been hard to get back to that or even top that. And I was like, calling it 5.5 was not going to ruffle feathers, really, after that. I feel like.
So, with all these changes they did make, I'd say the most important thing, though, is trying to clarify exactly what changes they made, because it's still 5th edition. Their stuff is still backwards compatible, but it's like a weird gray area. Mm-hmm. So, the biggest thing is trying to figure out, like, is it mostly quality of life changes? Is there, like, power creep between 5e and 5.5? Is it design philosophy shifts? Like, it's kind of all in the middle of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that it's definitely still backwards compatible, which is nice. But as you kind of said, there's definitely a gray area. And I feel like when you do, especially if you're going to do a long-term campaign from a module, like a 5th edition module, there has to be like a little tiny bit of extra thought put into it.
Mm-hmm.
but nothing too crazy. Like my 5th edition books ain't going anywhere. My collection, my hoard is not going anywhere, guys. So I will put the extra
They'll
thought
always be
into
useful.
it. Yeah, I will put the extra thought into it if I decide to incorporate the core 5.5 edition rule set.
I mean, it's like how our parents' generation still clings with their dying breath to 3rd edition.
Yeah. I thought 3.5 was more popular than 3rd edition.
It's like 5th edition and 5.5. It all kind of blurs together.
Yeah. I don't know. I
Although
got
I think
into
there's
it
more
with 5th
distinction
edition.
between 3 and 3.5. I don't know. I haven't played them. Maybe we'll have to check that one out sometime.
Well, yeah, I kind
Do
of
a
do
blast
want
from
to
the
check.
past.
I think it would be kind of fun to check those out a little bit, because both me and you got introduced with 5th edition, like a
Yeah.
lot of other people, especially in our generation. So, because 5th edition is what really revitalized and had like a mini renaissance with D&D.
Mm-hmm.
But when we were doing the actual play, I didn't notice a whole ton of changes per se, as far as like just the regular gameplay of it. But then again, I was playing with some amazing role players that just really heavily role played, and I didn't have to say anything like a good third of the time. I just let them go.
That's when you
So
know you've got good players. They just run it for you.
I know they were good players. So
And most of the changes that they made were all like mechanical stuff anyways, so like the core game still runs exactly the same.
I think the things I noticed, because one of the NPCs that I made with Savannah, like me and Savannah made, was we kind of actually, I won't spoil it per se, but we did make an NPC as if it were a player character type thing. We noticed was, at least for us, was the weapon mastery aspect, and then how backgrounds now worked. They like the backgrounds and feats kind of started to merge together a little bit.
Oh yeah, it totally changed. I remember when I first made a character in 5e, I felt like the background was all just like flavor. Other than like you get a language out of it, helps you decide like your starting equipment a little bit, but like past level 2, you don't even look at anyone's background ever again.
Yeah.
But now it makes a big difference.
Well, I feel like it's kind of nice because I know before this there was a popular homebrew rule with like longer term campaigns where, because level 1 could feel so squishy. And so if your group started at level 1 but people had played D&D before in any capacity, a lot of DMs would be like, "Hey, why don't you add an additional feat at level 1?" Like they had this homebrew rule where they would just add a feat that you could pick on top of your level 1, and then you would gain the feats like you normally would later down the line. That way you weren't so squishy and you could do more than attack, miss, end my turn.
Yeah, and obviously if you're here, you probably know what we're talking about, but talking about feat on a podcast sounds a little weird. So just to clarify, by a feat, we're talking about a feature that your class can gain that gives you like bonuses or abilities, stuff like that. We're not talking about like taking your shoes off.
I thought you were going that way, and I was like,
You
oh,
never know with the people who listen to these things. I just gotta make sure you guys know. We're talking about the features for your classes. But yeah, I was a DM who did that all the time. I always let people start with a feat, but I also am the type of DM where I tend to lean more on the side where I like letting my players be more powerful, because the stronger my players are, the more fun stuff I can throw at them. So I always love doing the level 1 feat.
honestly, I think for me, I always just, if people had a D&D background already, I usually just started them at level 3 and just go from there. That way they had the subclass feature stuff and go from there. But again, if you do start at level 1, because there's even some people where I feel like even if they haven't played D&D before, it's not too big of an additional thing to learn on top of it, honestly. Especially if the group's really good and patient with new players, then adding a feat isn't going to complicate things that much more, in my opinion.
Yeah, and apparently Wizards saw how popular that was, so they made it a common feature. So starting in 5.5e, whenever you make a character, you pick a feat at level 1, and that feat specifically is tied to your background, making the background much more important than it was before. So, depending on what background you pick, you'd get a different selection of feats that could help you out.
And it gives you options too with character creation, because say you like want to focus more on the role playing side, then maybe you pick a background and you just go with whatever the feat says. But if you're maybe more mechanically minded, you may want to look at the feats specifically tied to the backgrounds and kind of do a little bit of compare and contrast to make sure you build the character that you actually want to build. But either way, it can be fun.
Yeah. And on top of the feats, they also have now tied your ability score increases to your race to your background instead of your race. It used to be like, if you were an elf, you got a bonus to wisdom and dexterity or whatnot. If you were a human, you just got a couple to put around. And so they've changed it so that what bonuses you get are also tied to your background, making it even more important. Which is interesting because it used to be the race you chose was super important and then the background was kind of mediocre. Now it's the background's important, but the race is more of just flavor.
Yeah, don't
Obviously,
get me
they
wrong.
still have their traits, but
Oh yeah, I was about to say I was looking at the Asimar race traits, or species traits. Sorry, they use the term species now.
that's another rabbit hole we could go down, is going from race to species. Because you don't want to
Yeah,
be racist, you can be speciesist.
I'm okay calling it species. It doesn't really bother me too much.
I
It's
mean,
just
either
more
way,
of
it works
it's
fine.
just pure habit, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But I was looking at the Asimar species, and they definitely still have like certain ability, like magical inherent abilities because of the background of that species, because they have a connection to like the divine and to like the celestial planes of existence. So they get that, and so it's still kind of important to think about the species that you choose. But kind of like what Brandon was saying, like it doesn't. It's I feel like it's more balanced between the two. I think, in my opinion, but that's just what I'm seeing.
Yeah, no,
Like
I like
the
it.
like the background has more to it because of the feats, and the species isn't as important, but that's not to say that there isn't still thought consideration, especially again if you're more that mechanical mind build. But if you're playing for the first time, my advice still stands even with 5.5 edition. Just pick what sounds fun and go with it.
You'll
So,
figure it out along the way.
yeah, you're going to have to learn a bunch of stuff anyway. You might as well just pick what sounds fun and go from there. So,
But then once you've built your character, then you can get into the actual gameplay, which has had some decent changes. So, one of the biggest controversial points for honestly most editions of D&D, but it's been pretty big in 5e2, is marshals versus casters. Everyone is always talking about like how marshals and casters are different because spellcasters have this huge variety of control spells. They can, mind control people, make earthquakes, tsunamis, like cool stuff, and then a level 20 fighter, the paragon of fighter stuff, just whack stuff harder and faster. Just whack, whack, whack. One thing they implemented to kind of help with that was weapon masteries. That's something I was really excited about.
and that's the thing I noticed most in the actual play while building this like NPC character was the weapon masteries aspect. And because I'm using a physical copy, let me flip to it real quick. Because I'm cool like that, guys. Nope, that's spells. Oh, here we go.
You can't spell
Equipment.
old school without cool.
Oh, here we go. Weapons. All right. So, but yeah, I kind of liked it. I will say, I remember in fifth edition. That's so weird to say now because it's just I usually just say in D&D, but now there's a new edition, so I have to say fifth edition now. So weird, but but playing fifth edition, I remember I played a battlesmith, artificer, and Eberron, and we were allowed to have guns, and I had a rifle, and not just a musket. He gave me a rifle. And there's a huge difference between the two. And I remember being able to shoot off bullets that did 1d12 damage like multiple times with multi-attack. I was like, heck yes. I will say the one thing I noticed when reviewing this was I don't like what they've labeled the muskets and pistols. They have what's called the loading property, which means you can only shoot once per turn because it takes a long time to reload it. Which, to be fair, for a musket,
I mean, it makes sense with a musket
it
because
does
like
make
you got
sense.
to
It
reload the whole
absolutely.
thing. But at the same time, if you're going to add the reload property to make it more realistic, I don't see anybody properly reloading a musket in 6 seconds and then firing off another round accurately.
I don't know if you look at. So my father is going back to school to get his master's in American history right now for fun because he can, and that's so great for him that he has to pay so little for tuition. Anyway, um, he works at the school. He works for ASU, so um, they certain soldiers, if they were truly trained and they could do it right, they could do it pretty dang quick. 6 seconds isn't too off the mark.
I would say, okay, so I just consulted Google, and it says that with specialized techniques, people who are used to loading muskets regularly and are like experts at it can usually hit about 10 to 12 seconds. But apparently in the mid 19th century, they got breech loading rifles that could load in about 4 to 6 seconds. So maybe we're just going with breech loading rifles from mid 19th century.
That might be true. Because instead of having to jam it all the way down the front of the barrel, you could just load it from the back, and that saves a ton of time. But I guess interesting because I also like history a lot. So what's interesting, there's a movie out there where it was a Civil War movie, and they showed a scene where brand new, like, they were volunteers, but they kind of acted like draftees a little bit. They were like kind of taking pot shots with their muskets. Because in the Civil War, they started out using muskets, and that's when innovation just kicked off throughout the war, and it just kept getting better and better real fast. But at the beginning of the war, a lot of them were still using muskets or musket-like type stuff. And they were taking pot shots, and the commanding officer came by, and they said, "Oh, that's really impressive," because their marksmanship was like on point. They could actually hit really well with the musket. They said, "Now do it faster," right? So he starts doing it faster, and then he just starts screaming at him, "Faster, faster, faster, faster!" And the guy drops all of this stuff because he's so like agitated. And the commanding officer's like, "Congratulations, you're dead. You got to do it within, that 10 to 12 seconds. You're taking too long."
Yep.
So either you got shot or somebody was able to run up and stab you with a bayonet.
I mean, that's why they had bayonets. You fire it off, and then you're basically just holding a spear at that point.
Yeah, and in the Civil War, that was still really notable. So anyway, it's just an interesting thing. So I guess the point is that, 6 seconds is still pretty dang quick, but it's also fantasy. So I think we can give Wizards of the Coast a pass on this one.
I just wonder why try to put realism in it at all if you're going to try to go that far. Like just let me shoot my fantasy musket when I want to shoot my fantasy musket, you know?
If you're a cool dungeon master, you'll let rifles in, and if you let rifles in, then there's no reason you can't take 2 shots during that 6 seconds because you now have a magazine.
I mean, you could also always just have an artificer in the party who does the repeating shot infusion. That one's pretty easy, but
Oh, that would be interesting. I'm going to have to look at the rules. Maybe I'll make a social media post on this because I won't have time during the recording. I'll have to look and see, and I'll have to let everybody know what I find out because now I want to see if I can bypass it with their own rules. So I'll figure it out. So
yeah,
stay tuned. Stay tuned on social media, guys.
But back to the weapon mastery thing. To close that divide between the casters and the marshals for battlefield control, they added a whole bunch of properties to all the weapons, and you can pick a few weapons that you're mastered with as your character, and you get cool extra features. Like, for example, if you're using a really quick weapon like a dagger, you get nick, which means you can make an offhand attack as part of your attack action, which saves your bonus action, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. Or if you're using like a huge warhammer, you can topple people and knock them down and start pummeling them on the ground. There's all sorts of cool things you can do to help you control the battlefield and get a little extra bang for your buck.
And most importantly, they brought back cleave.
Yes. Good old-fashioned 2 goblins for the price of 1.
Yep. And now, granted, these mastery properties are mastered properties. So depending on how you build your character, as you build your character, it will tell you if you gain the mastery fee in that. So, for instance, a lot of fighters are just going to be able to have.
Fighters get so many weapon masteries. I was going to say, if I'm being honest, it feels like they just gave every martial character a little splash of Battlemaster Fighter in there, which I'm all for.
Yeah, I'm honestly okay with that too. So, but yeah, a lot of them are really cool. I always like the sap master property.
Oh yeah, sap is fun.
If you hit a creature with this weapon, that creature has disadvantage on its next attack roll before the start of your next turn. So if you're higher level where you're facing enemies that have multi-attack as well, that's a great one to have. And it's weapons that I wouldn't have considered before playing, because I definitely have a certain thematic look to my characters when it comes to weapons too. But because of these mastered properties that certain weapons have, I feel like it kind of forces people to consider other weapons that normally may not be considered by general people at general, or at least that person, which I think is also really
there
cool.
are so many weapons that before the mastery properties were just like clones of each other, like trident versus spear, they're pretty similar. Scimitar versus short sword, like, not a huge difference. There's a lot of stuff where it's like tiny little minuscule differences, but it's mostly just flavor. Now there's actual differences that help you to decide what you want to do because there's the different masteries associated with each weapon.
Yeah. Like, for instance, I would never consider the War Pick, usually, but it has that sap mastery feature. So if I'm playing a martial character, I can have that ability. And essentially the War Pick has the same aspects of a longsword that I normally would pick, except the only difference is piercing versus slashing damage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's literally the only difference, because it's a 1d8, it's versatile, so it can change to a 1d10, but it's got that sap feature. While a longsword, oh, you know what, guys? Never mind. I'm sticking with my longsword. It also has the sap feature. This is amazing. This system was built for me. I literally looked at him like, it's literally the same thing. That's so funny. Oh, this is awesome, guys. I'm loving 5.5 already.
Parker's renewed love of longswords. They'll always be there.
It will always be there, guys. I mean, to be fair, my earlier statement, I think, still stands. It's just funny that that's how that turned out in that specific instance.
So outside of the weapon changes, they also had quite a few class changes as well. Like, pretty much every class got reworked.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even just a casual glance, you can already tell, like...
I have to say, up front, I'm really sad with what they did to my baby, the Paladin. I have always been a diehard Paladin player from the moment I set eyes on D&D. I love Paladins. But making Smite a spell instead of a class feature hurts my soul. Because now you have to actually cast a spell to use the Smite, which means you lose your bonus action. There's no more Smite stacking. They don't crit anymore. My Unga Bunga Divine Smash of Doom is gone. And it makes me so sad.
That is pretty sad. I feel like the way you feel about Divine Smite is the way I feel about how they're treating the guns with the loading property. So.
Yep. So that was my biggest thing, is I was very sad about the changes to Smite on the Paladin, but they also gave them some other bumps in other areas to help them out. Like, Lay on Hands is a lot more versatile now. And it's just, honestly, the class is pretty well balanced. But the Paladin's always been a little busted, if you ask me. Like, they can tank, they could nuke, they could do sustain. Like, they were great. They were healers, but now they're just a little less on the bursty side, which, you know what, I can accept. That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super fair.
And they got weapon mastery now, which helps too.
Yeah. I mean, that's changed. I mean, as I said before, talking about the wizards, they changed it from, like, the School of Magic to, like, they actually gave them names, like Illusionist, Evoker. Like, they kind of went more of the thematic route, I think, with that, too. Mm-hmm. So even just a casual look through, like, when I first saw this in Barnes & Noble, I was like, oh, man, they changed a lot. And I feel like most of the changes with 5.5 edition are centered around class and subclasses.
Oh, yeah, totally. Subclasses all got totally changed up. Like, they are completely different subclasses now. Some of them.
Yeah. Similar names, but they are a bit different.
So. I will say, though, my favorite change to classes has to be the rogues. They did rogues good in this set. Mostly because I love the cunning strikes. The cunning strikes are so much fun because they give the rogues a whole bunch of versatility. Basically, you can sacrifice a little bit of your sneak attack damage to have some sort of cool effect. Like, you can poison somebody. You can, like, trip them up. There's all sorts of cool things you can do. It basically turns rogues into little mini battle masters.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Savannah's going to really enjoy playing a rogue in 5.5 edition.
Mm-hmm. Especially some of the later cunning strikes you can do, they get pretty devastating. So I was really happy about that with the rogues because I always like a good rogue.
Mm-hmm. No, rogues are awesome. I've really enjoyed playing rogues. One of my favorite, honestly, I remember playing as a rogue when we were on with Rosemary PG Studios, and that was so freaking fun. I loved playing the rogue. So I think I was playing a swashbuckler rogue with 5th edition, and that was very fun. So
Swashbuckler is even more fun in 5.5.
oh, they have swashbuckler again.
Yep.
See, arcane trickster, assassin, soul knife, thief. Oh, it must be in. Yeah, I don't.
It's one of the newer books. It's not in the
Mm-hmm.
core one, but they've done the swashbuckler.
Okay, cool. That's what I say. I only have the core book because I really wanted to test the waters with it. So,
Oh yeah,
but I'm probably going to go down the same rabbit hole I did with 5th edition. So it's fine. We're fine.
they also completely redid warlock packs, which is really cool. Basically, any warlock can choose to play more castery or spellblade. They don't have to go specifically a hexblade warlock to do the spellblade route, which is really nice. And ironically, one of the most popular multi-classes in 5th edition was a paladin warlock, which sounds thematically opposing, but they function so well together. But ironically, the warlock is now such a good spellblade because of the changes that you don't even need the paladin levels anymore. You just go full spellblade warlock and you can go kick some butt, which is nice.
I was about to say you've done that combination before, a paladin with a couple levels of warlock in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you had way too much fun with that.
It's a good mix.
Yes, it was a very good mix for you.
Well, you know, just tackling a lich to the ground in the middle of silence and then just pummeling her. It's always a lot of fun.
I still hate that spell so much. No matter what edition it comes out in, I'm still gonna always hate
Silence just shuts down any spellcaster. It's just auto kill.
I
But
literally
speaking of
wrote it.
spellcasters, oh, sorry, you're saying?
I was gonna say I literally, with that specific Lich NPC in the book, I literally wrote down a couple other spells that weren't verbal components, just in case I ever used her again against people that had the silence spell. I was like, this is stupid, because literally every single one of her spells had the verbal component. I was like, this is broken. This is stupid broken. Like, this is unfair broken. It's so anticlimactic of an ending to a campaign. I was like, this is stupid, but I guess, but I don't know what else says D&D than that. So I guess I shouldn't.
Just fist fighting a lich.
Yeah, you guys just literally just beat her down to death, and then you grappled her, and you guys bullied the lich. Honestly,
Hey, you almost killed me with those claw attacks.
Yeah, that's all I had. Oh, she's gonna swipe at you like an animal. Like, that's great. Like, I'm glad it was there so I could do something, but it still wasn't worth it. It still was dumb. So, anyway, what were you saying?
Oh, I was gonna say, speaking of spellcasters and silence and stuff like that, there were also quite a few spell changes that were notable. So the marshals got their weapon masteries, and there's a couple class reworks, and then they didn't rework the casters, I feel like, as much. They did a lot of reworking the actual spells, because there were a lot of abusable spells in 5th edition.
Mm-hmm. Like silence.
Silence. No, like, for example, they changed counterspell. Now you always have to make a save. It used to be counterspell. If you counterspelled at the level of what you're hitting or higher, it just automatically canceled the spell. Mm-hmm. Now they always have a chance to make a save to stop it, so that way a high-level caster can't just shut you down on anything.
Yeah. That is kind of nice, because it still gives players the option, but it doesn't completely ruin a Dungeon Master's fun either. So
yeah. And now that we have, like, counterspell, silvery barbs, all sorts of fun stuff to just make people not be able to play, it's nice to have some options.
Silvery barbs, man. Josh loved his silvery barbs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that was the wizard in that same campaign. He silvery barbs everything.
Yep. All the time. Spent all his spell slots on silvery barbs. It was really annoying. Great support character though.
Oh yeah. But like other changes they made is they buffed a lot of the healing spells. So fifth edition developed a little bit of a meta where healing spells were just used for bumping people because there was no penalty for going down in fifth edition. So you could just get to 0 HP, throw 1 HP of healing on them, they're back up, have another turn, go down, do it, just rinse and repeat. And they kind of wanted to get away from that because that's a bit of a cheesy mechanic. So they made it so that the healing spells have a little more oomph to them now, so you want to actually use them to heal up and build up HP. Yeah. So that's a change that I like because I hated that mechanic. I always implemented homebrew rules for going down in combat because I just wanted to discourage that. So things like going down gives you exhaustion or disadvantage on next attack, stuff like that, because it's no fun when people just sit there bouncing up again.
Yeah. Yeah, when they're only 1 hit point. The enemy just has to go over and touch them, and they just...
Yep. Then, with that 1 hit point, they're somehow able to get like a full round in. Your 1 HP fighter is able to get 6 swings off. Yeah. Make it make sense.
I was about to say, I've seen somebody do a level 20 monk before, and I was like, holy freaking crap. And he built this guy to the max. I was like, this is disgusting. I think he got off like 9 attacks or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he was constantly rolling like above 19 the whole time. I was like, that's stupid.
Yeah, monks are nutty. In our last campaign, it went to level 20, the one that I played with my family. My dad was playing a monk, and I made the mistake of letting him stack too many on-hit effects, and he was hitting like 8 times around, like you were saying, and dealing like a D8 plus 4D6 plus 2D6 plus 7, whatever, just ridiculous on every hit. And I was like, what is going on to my HP? This BBEG is draining. And then stunning strikes and stuff. Man, monks can go crazy if you do them right.
Yeah, they can. Although I will admit that I'm not super familiar with a monk, honestly. But after hearing that, I was like, I need to start looking into monk more.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun. They have some good stuff to them, and they've made monks. Monks had a lot of changes, actually, in 5.5. I'd say that's probably one of the most changed classes, and they balanced them a lot. Because I feel like monks used to be very swingy in the way that they would either break your campaign or be completely useless. And there was nothing in between. But they're a lot more middle-of-the-road, like, solid choices now, which I appreciate.
I do got to ask your opinion on how they handled the Ranger in 5.5.
Oh, we don't talk about the Ranger in 5.5. I am so sad about that. The gall that they had to design the entire class around Hunter's Mark is just absurd. Because you have to maintain concentration on Hunter's Mark, which means that you cannot use any other concentration spells. There are many other concentration spells that just get straight up better later on, and Hunter's Mark doesn't scale at all. So why are you making the entire class based on this one first level spell? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like, I was looking at like all the subclasses, and I feel like out of the core rulebook, the only one that seemed really interesting was the Fey Wanderer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Hunter was like, meh. The Beastmaster was also kind of meh. Because with Beastmaster, it was funny because it talks about how you can use your bonus action to command your beast, but then in like the next sentence, it says you can also sacrifice one of your attacks when you take the attack action to command the beast to take the beast strike action. And then I look at the stat, the only option is beast strike. That's the only action listed for like all of them. For Beast of the Land, Beast of the Sky, I'm like, I feel like you could have made that paragraph like half the length because...
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like they were trying to make it cooler than it actually was. And don't get me wrong, like, because here's the thing. Thematically, I love Rangers. I think they're just cool. They're cool as heck. I mean, especially when your nerd journey starts with The Hobbit and then you go into Lord of the Rings and that's your, like, base for everything nerd fantasy, everything. Yeah, Rangers are awesome. But then D&D just, like, regular 5th edition core rule set was kind of like, eh. And then I feel like with Tasha's, it kind of was like, oh. And then now 5.5 is kind of back to, meh. I'm like, whatever. I feel like with the Ranger, if I was DMing a 5.5, which I'm sure I will at some point, I feel like I would give the option with the ranger to be like, hey, if you want to build based off the 5.5 rules, or if you want to build based off the Tasha stuff from last edition, you can.
Yeah. I mean, my homebrew, just slight tweak that I do for Rangers is if anyone's using 5.5e at my table, I let Huntress Mark be a class feature instead of a spell. That's all I do, and it makes so much of a difference because you don't have to concentrate on it. It's something you can just cast because it's such a small bonus anyways, but it enables the class to function. And that small change just makes Hunters feel so much better.
Yeah, just take away the concentration aspect. Like that alone would like at least make it like if you're gonna insist on making Hunter's Mark the focal point of like all this ranger stuff, at least take away the concentration aspect. Like, please.
Well, like, if you want the ultimate slap in the face that they did to a ranger, just look at the capstone. At level 20, the max level, the pinnacle of your strength in the game, for a ranger, your Hunter's Mark goes from a d6 to a d10. That is an average increase of, I think it's like 1.5 damage per hit. At level 20, if it puts anything in perspective, at level 20, a rogue can just automatically get a nat 20 on a roll. A paladin turns into a freaking, like, epic, like, guardian angel type of thing. Like, they get a straight up transformation. Like, they get an extra 1.5 damage per hit. Who came up with that? I'm sure you guys can tell. I'm a little heated about the whole ranger thing.
Well, it sucks because like level 13 deals with Hunter's Mark, level 17 deals with Hunter's Mark, and then level 20 again deals with Hunter's Mark. And a fun fact, in the D&D sets for Magic the Gathering, there is a Hunter's Mark card. It's also meh.
Of course it is.
I think I have it in one of my decks because I made a Ranger themed deck. Like that's why it's in there.
It's only
like,
there for flavor.
It's there for flavor. Yeah. Yeah, it's I should recant a little bit what I said about the concentration because apparently level 13 taking damage can't break your concentration on Hunter's Mark.
I mean that's cool, but you still can't concentrate on anything else good.
Yeah, that's the problem is that you still have the concentration aspect. So it's not as bad as like because I feel like when I was talking about it a minute ago, like I made it seem really, really bad. I'm trying to make this fair, a little like a fair thing. So it's not as bad, but still bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reading through it and I was just like, I'm just so nothing's jumping out to me. Again, Fey Wanderer was like the only one that I was like, if I had to play a ranger in 5.5, I guess I'll be a Fey Wanderer, but Fey Wanderer kind of turns your ranger into like an almost semi-spell, like almost a spellcaster. So
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly an issue that rangers have always had, is I feel like they have a bit of identity crisis. They want to be a fighter, and they also want to be a druid, and they can't decide which one they want to go to, so they just suck at being both.
Again, thematically, they could be so cool, and they just keep getting done dirty, man. So,
but, like, if you didn't have to concentrate on Hunter's Mark, you've got, like, Conjure Animals, Elemental Weapon, Flame Arrows, Lightning Arrow, like, Summon Fae for concentration. There's so many cool options.
But if you want to utilize, yeah, but the problem is if you want to quote unquote, utilize the class to its max, it's like they're forcing you to use Hunter's Mark all the flipping time, which makes you not be able to cast those other things. So you're really limited on what you're being able to do. And I'm really surprised this made it into 5.5 and that test subjects didn't complain about this right off the bat.
I know. I'm sure they did. Wizards just didn't care because they don't like the Ranger. They have a grudge.
I don't understand that, but whatever. Whatever, Wizards. I guess I shouldn't expect anything less from a spellcaster. Just hating on them.
Well, they couldn't, as a wizard, Wizards of the Coast couldn't afford to let a marshal encroach on their territory and potentially become strong, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
So outside of all of those, there were a couple of other system changes that they made. Like, one thing I really liked is the way that they changed exhaustion. Exhaustion used to be a big old mess of, like, basically a stacking debuff. For every rank of exhaustion, you would have a different debuff, and you just have to remember what all of them are. Now it's just super simple. For every level of exhaustion, you just get a -1 to your rolls. Super easy. You get exhausted enough, you die. It is what it is. But like other things they did is across 5th edition. 5th edition's been out for 10 years before they made these changes. And they've had so many different source books that have come out, all with different slight variations of rules. So another really nice thing they've done with 5.5e is they've kind of just like brought everything together and made like one solid rule set that to a degree doesn't contradict itself. I'm sure there's flaws here and there, but it's much more cohesive than trying to piece everything together before. Because before 5.5e, it was to the point where the DM had to own every single source book and have intimate knowledge of them to be able to accurately run everything. Because you never know if your player is going to throw out some random feat from Tasha's that you've never heard of before and contradict something in like the base rules and changes it. And it was a big mess.
It's not an if, it's a win.
Oh, it's definitely a win.
It's a win. Yeah. Yeah. No, the rules glossary is really nice. I will admit that's something I didn't fully realize during our actual play when I was looking up a couple things. But again, it's still really nice to have, and especially when reading through it. It might be one of those things too to really utilize it well, just like read through it real quick, and then it's like, oh, okay, like I kind of have an idea of what's in there, and I just need clarification occasionally.
And then on top of that, I'd say probably one of my favorite changes, just throwing it out there, I love how a nat 20 gives you inspiration now. Like, that's so cool. Just like a little way for the players to produce it themselves, because honestly, as a DM, a lot of the times I forget that inspiration even exists.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely forget it a lot. I mean, it's still kind of nice, because inspiration is one thing that I try to do as a DM where, like, I really try to utilize it because I really want to reward my players, and inspiration is one of those, like, really simple things. Like, I've even done it for, like, when players have birthdays, I'm just like, oh, you get an inspiration for your birthday. Like, so yeah, that's kind of nice. But yeah, having it generate a nat 20, that's pretty, or having the nat 20 generate inspiration is pretty nice.
I mean, it kind of makes me think of my homebrew rule of a called shot with a nat 20. Basically, if someone rolls a nat 20 on an attack, you can like say what you want to do, specifically like shoot them in the eye or whatever, and then I give the monster a debuff or whatever from it.
Yeah.
A little bit of inspiration, do something special.
Yeah, and that's really nice too. Because if you think about it, it also makes sense because nat 20s, because 5.5, I feel like did a better job of really recognizing, critical success and critical failure between a nat 20 and a nat 1. And being able to just give inspiration off of that nat 20, because usually when you roll a nat 20, you did something pretty epic in that moment, which usually constitutes an inspiration. That's like really cool. And it honestly just makes it way more exciting too.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like a lot of players are willing to accept that, if there's going to be critical successes, there's going to be critical failures. And I don't think I've really met anybody that's had an actual problem with that. Like, they're totally okay with that.
I mean, some people are not a big fan of the critical failures, so I don't use those as often. But the critical successes are always so much fun.
Well, I know when I start, like when I do a session 0 with a new group, I always tell them like, hey, if in my game, if there's going to be critical successes, there needs to be critical failures. But then I also remind them like, hey, I promise I'm here to help facilitate the fun and help you guys have as much fun for everybody here at the table. So like, it's not going to be, it'll suck in the moment, but it could still lead to some interesting story potential, because I've had some really interesting storylines come off of a nat 1 before.
Oh yeah. I mean, as the nat 1 nerds, we have a lot of fun with them.
Oh yeah.
I had someone explain it to me once as a level 20 monk who is punching someone 10 times in a round, whatever, you have a like 30% chance, I forget what the chance, I'm just throwing numbers out there, but it was like a 30% chance to get a nat 1 at some point on one of those attacks per turn. And as someone who is supposed to be like the epitome of martial prowess, are they going to be accidentally punching them in the face once every like 15 seconds? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So like, there's a degree. So I've settled on, if you get a nat 1, I kind of gauge the situation to decide whether or not I want to throw anything in there with it. But a lot of the times I won't.
I think one of my favorite ones I do with a nat 1 is sometimes, especially if it's like a ranged weapon, I'm like, all right, here's this person, this person, this person, and this person. Half of them are allies and half of them are foes. Roll a d4 and see which one you ended up hitting. And I almost treat it like a successful hit every time. I'm like, just let me know which one you hit. And so So it's
That's where it's
oftentimes it's
going.
not. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
I love doing that with marshals. My favorite thing is with nat ones is just with magic is making it like misfire somehow. Like nat ones on magic you can have a lot of fun with.
Oh, that does sound like a lot of fun.
I in that campaign we were talking about the level 20 monk, I had a world event that essentially disrupted the weave, and it created pockets of chaos essentially where whenever someone tried to cast a spell within this area, there was like a souped up wild magic table that they'd have to roll on. And it was a lot of fun because it was for every spell cast in that area instead of just like a roll for it.
Yeah. I had a similar one of our Christmas one shots we did. I did something kind of similar to that, where like magic was kind of disappearing from the area. So like a lot of times, like okay, roll to see if you even successfully cast magic of any kind. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think they ended up rolling pretty high all the time though, so it ended up not being that important aspect of the story, even though that was supposed to be an important aspect of the story. But oh well, the dice giveth, the dice taketh away. It telleth the
Yep.
story. But yeah, I think I don't know. So I guess ultimate opinion is 5.5 edition worth trying out?
I definitely think it is. I've enjoyed the changes. It's a little bit of a breath of fresh air. And honestly, with how compatible they are, if you don't like it, you can kind of just cherry pick what you like from 5.5 and what you like from 5e and just kind of make your own little system out of it.
Yeah, make your own 5.2 or 5.3 or whatever you want to do. Because again, it is backwards compatible, so I think it can go both ways. I think stuff from 5th edition can come into 5.5 depending on how your group plays, or it can go vice versa. You know, like you
Mm-hmm.
may enjoy some of the core stuff, but maybe some of the adventure modules they make are just like it just doesn't feel the same. So you go back to the 5th edition adventure module, but you know, better utilizing the 5.5 core rules. I think it's also worth getting. I wasn't sure. I know initially, I think I was initially planning on maybe just purchasing the core books. So, like the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Monster Manual. And I was like, I'm probably going to be done. But I think I am willing to also potentially purchase some of the additional books, especially the ones where they introduce new classes or subclasses. Because I would really love to see, at least for me personally, what they did with the Artificer.
Oh,
Because I think they just came out.
yeah, they just did the Artificer, and it's interesting. I feel like they left it relatively similar. There's not a ton of huge changes I could tell,
Oh,
but they're not bad.
okay. Because I remember I played a Battlesmith Artificer that I really, really liked.
Mm-hmm.
It
Oh,
was
Battlesmiths
very
are always
fun.
fun.
Oh yeah,
They kept the Battlesmith as a solid option. I feel like they didn't do the Alchemist justice, but the rest of the subclasses they did a pretty good job with. But Alchemist has always been a little weird.
yeah. It kind of gives off wizard vibes, honestly. You know, wizard making potions or whatever. But I think it's one of those subclasses where I think depending on the right character and the right setting, you could have fun with it still. But maybe like low key adventures, an alchemist could still be pretty fun. But
Yeah, I mean,
maybe not world saving ones. But I don't know.
if you're playing like a goof off sandbox campaign, it could be fun. You gotta make all
Hmm.
your fun potions for your buddies.
Yep. But yeah, I agree. I think 5.5 is definitely worth checking out, even if you're a pretty heavy set 5th edition fan like we are. Just because it is fairly compatible, and I feel like, as you kind of were saying, a lot of the changes are either pretty compatible or it wouldn't take a whole lot to tweak it. Kind of like what I said earlier at the beginning of the episode. You can go back and forth between the two. You just have to put a little extra thought into it, but nothing strenuous. But I think that's all my personal thoughts on it. Any final thoughts with you?
I'm gonna said my piece. It's definitely a good system. I encourage you guys to go check it out, and hopefully we can get to have some fun with it.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't already, we actually did do an actual play trying to utilize this system for Valentine's Day. So if you want to check that out, it's a little different than what we usually do. We don't usually start with the actual play, but we wanted to do it for the holiday. So, and me and Savannah had come up with a really fun adventure idea for the holiday, so we're like, we'll do a little out of order this time. We'll probably return to 5.5, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, as D&D nerds at heart, we'll always come back to it.
Yeah, at the core, our foundation is D&D, so whatever edition that may appear in. Well, thanks guys for listening to this episode. You can find us in order of how well we maintain those presents, Instagram, Facebook, and then finally Threads. You can also email us at nat1nerdspodcast@gmail.com if you have any suggestions, systems to explore, or anything like that. We're always happy to receive those suggestions. And our to be played piles are ever growing all the time. So otherwise, again, thanks for listening, guys, and happy rolling.